A very good day to all of you listeners. For this episode of Ensnaring the Muse, we have director and writer and filmmaker Jake Tranter, who just finished the final cut of his new film Limbo with the company Spider King Studios. So let's go. All right, writer and director Jake Tranter. It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. And I have to say, this is kind of dumb because we both live in the same area. And, we should be doing this like around a table, but, Zoom makes it, I guess, too easy for us.
Yeah. No, I agree.
All right.
Definitely.
Yeah. So the most important thing is discussing Limbo because that's the project that you've just wrapped and started the editing process, I believe. Um, can you give us some background on Limbo?
Um, well, me and my buddy Jacob were kind of sitting in our kitchen and we were wanting to come up with a idea for a script that could apply to COVID guidelines because we were tired of not doing anything in the time that we're in, and we were just wanting to actually, get back to it and just start making films again. And so we came up with the idea for Limbo, this writer that kind of um, goes and isolates himself in a cottage that was getting rid of the whole being out in public issue, or around a city, and we could film where we are. And we wanted to make it a horror slash psychological thriller kind of thing. And so that's kind of how the idea spurred. Then we just got started on the writing process, created an outline, and then we ran with it.
Nice. Nice. Well, I would never expect you to give spoilers, but could you give a rundown of the plot so people will know what to look for?
Yeah. So pretty much the basic rundown is there's this writer named Chester, and he isolates himself out into a cottage in the middle of nowhere. He cuts off all ties with civilization. Um, the only person who he talks to is his agent, and even then, he's like not wanting to talk to his agent. You'll see that in the movie, but
Hmm.
um, yeah, he basically is working on writing a book, and he reaches writer's block, so he's having trouble figuring out what to write.
Right.
Um, there's an altercation with a crazed fan who's really like into his work for various reasons, and they wind up having an altercation because the guy breaks into the cottage,
Hmm.
and pretty much after the altercation they get into a fight, things happen, and after it's settled down and he carries on with his life, paranormal activity starts happening in the cottage,
Hmm.
and things lead him to going crazy, thinking he's cursed. So that's kind of like an extended version of our synopsis. It's
Great.
pretty much how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. D did you find any challenges like because you wrote the script and you're a writer, so you're a writer writing about a writer.
Yeah. It was interesting. I wanted to use an old fashioned typewriter.
Hmm.
I don't know why, I just had that envisioned, but we wound up using an electrical typewriter, an electronic typewriter. It wasn't the same, and we wound up recording from different angles because I had no idea how the heck to use one. So, uh,
That's your Gen Z quality coming through.
luckily, our actor Bob Moreland, he actually knew how to use it. So he was like, "You guys don't know how to use this," and he just starts messing with it, knowing what to do. And I'm like, "Thank God he's here."
Yeah.
So,
Well, great. And of course the trailer's out and we'll link to the trailer so that anybody interested can go check that out. Let's speak more broadly about Spider King Studios. a local film company, well, local to us anyway, here in Southern Oregon. Um, can you talk about how that came about?
Yeah. Well, I personally have always been into theater and just performance arts in general, and uh, so I've been doing that pretty much since middle school, and then I got into the behind the scenes technical theater aspect side of things, and there was an opportunity that came up called Up to Us Now, Child Abuse Coalition, and they every year put on these PSAs pretty much where the youth can come together all around the area of Douglas County and come up with ideas of how they think the community can improve in any way. And so they got to write their scripts. They got to pretty much create a storyboard. And then a film production company would come down and actually film them. And
Wow.
they would be sent out to nationwide to different, news outlets and stuff like that. So just being a part of that process really sparked film for me.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to create one of my own. And that's when I made my first film, Dead Man Walking, which, you know, it's cringy when I look back on it, but, I did the best with what I could. It's not terrible,
No, no,
but,
no.
everyone's,
I've watched it, you know.
yeah,
For a student film especially, I thought it was magnificent. I was actually I was the interviewee earlier today, just a couple hours ago. That's how much Zoom life is happening now. And I was talking about the first couple of albums that my first band released and how utterly cringy that stuff was. So, and I think your film was way better than my first albums, for what it's worth. Yeah, looks like a connection
yeah.
problem. There we go.
No, I just having an audio problem, so I just fixed that real quick.
Fair
But yeah,
enough. Yeah, yeah. Um, how old were you when Up to Us, when you were exposed to that?
I started when I was 16.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, I was 16, and then I did it for 3 years. So,
Hmm.
you know, 17, 18. And the cool thing is me being a part of that, getting to know the people who ran the program and just the people who worked on it in general. We've been actually working together and having the process of Spire King Studios actually being their production company for when they do it in the future once COVID clears up and everything. So that's a really cool thing that
Yeah.
I'm proud to say that I could be a part of.
Oh yeah. Well, no, and it's an extraordinary opportunity. It's amazing how like you take a chance on starting this company and putting yourself out there, and then I think it speaks volumes about how quickly people come to recognize your talent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah,
So
no, yeah, it was great being able to actually start off as a youth, being a part of it, just
mhm.
learning the ropes, and then it's almost come full circle. I think it's a really great opportunity.
Yeah. Um, Another thing that's interesting in getting to know you and your work is, I mean, certainly you're a very driven person when it comes to making the films, but I don't think I've ever met anybody who writes quite as quickly as you do.
Hmm.
How long does it take you to put out a script?
Um, Me, well, I guess it depends on how driven I am to write it because I
Right.
do procrastinate a lot. But I guess for me, I have this weird thing about me where I put it off and I put it off, but once I start writing, I can't stop.
Okay.
So I don't sleep at night. I sit there and I write and I don't stop until it's done, or at least I'm burnt out or something.
Yeah.
So I could, you know, get a full, I wrote Limbo in, I'd say, like maybe 4 or 5 days.
Wow. Wow.
So
Yeah, you see that's just insane to me. you know. But I mean, I guess I'm a big Jordan Peterson fan, and one of the things that he talks about is being possessed by an idea as opposed to possessing an idea, right? And so people who are heavily driven, it's almost like they don't have a choice in the matter, right? That it has to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
One of the things that I like to talk about in these discussions is, and this is cool because you're the first. Well, I mean, I was going to say you're the first non-musician. That's not true. You are actually a musician, but what we're talking about is not your music. It's your films. So this discussion is the first non-music discussion that I've had. And one of the things that I've been very interested in is seeing if there's a common thread of inspiration that exists through different art forms. So for instance, is it possible to draw parallels between like filmmaking and painting, or obviously like filmmaking and photography, filmmaking and music, or filmmaking and culinary arts? I was hoping you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah. I definitely believe they, uh, that there are some big similarities, because it's all art in the end of it. When you're painting, you're trying to bring an image to life, putting your thoughts onto a canvas. And I think of film in the same way. I look through the lens and I make it look the way I want because I want to present it a certain way. It's just through a different format. Music, I mean, I've written my own songs, and something I can definitely understand is that when you're writing music, you're writing what you feel,
Hmm.
and um, the same goes for me with my writing for film. So I write what I feel, and that goes into my script. The best way to make something alive is to write what you know. That's my opinion.
Hmm.
And so, you write the characters that are going through pain. It's pain that I've actually gone through in one way or another, metaphorically or not. But then you put that through a lens of a camera, and then that's just, yeah. So I think there definitely are similarities in that aspect.
That's interesting. Because we were actually talking about this yesterday about, the well of pain as being a catalyst for producing something. So that kind of begs the question for me though, for Limbo, for something like a psychological thriller. Where does where did I'm sorry, for a psychological thriller like Limbo, where is that wellspring? Where is that inspiration coming from if you're writing what you know?
Hmm. uh, for me, it's I mean, this. I've talked to you about it in the past, but I myself have been in limbo for like 2 years now, living
Yeah.
the same life. I was in the army, got injured very badly, been dealing with a medical discharge, and it's been taking forever. And I'm not allowed to get a job. I'm not allowed to, do the things that I want to do and make money, and to actually progress with my life. And so it's almost like I'm having writer's block, but with my life.
Oh,
I'm stuck in this progressive state of wanting to do what I want, but I can't get there because something else is binding me to,
right.
so you know what I mean. And so that's what limbo stemmed from for me. And so there's a lot of those feelings that go into that work for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, like everyone's situation is unique, but how many people have you met where we're all in this like state of it feels like like stagnation that we don't have any control over.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know about you. I can probably name 5 people off the top of my head that are going through that on some level.
Yeah. So yeah, so definitely on a like at least a subconscious level, it can be relatable to a lot of people.
Mhm. So getting back to the way that life experiences have happened, I've known you for a little while now, and kind of am privy to some of the crap that you've been through, like in your personal life. I am, in the process of recovering from, like a severe, detrimental series of rage-filled depression on my end, and that's been a trial. But when we're talking about, you know, uh, things that we've overcome, I hope that maybe you could talk about your accident, if that's okay with you. What led to your
Yeah.
injuries?
Um, well, I signed the dotted line to serve my country, and I knew very well that that sort of thing could happen to me if I were to ever, go overseas and actually fight the fight. But I never got to that point. I was actually training to be deployed when that happened. I was in a convoy, and I was the assistant driver to a driver, so I was in the passenger seat of an LMTV. The guy fell asleep at the wheel or whatever may happened on his end of things, and what happened is the vehicle rolled. Um, I was shot up through the gunner hole, flew about 30 feet, and I hit my head on the way out, so I was unconscious at least. But yeah, no, I suffered some bad injuries from that accident, and so multiple spinal fractures, hematoma in my left knee, headaches. I still have headaches on a daily basis. I had a traumatic brain injury, so I deal with a lot of psychological problems with depression and PTSD, even hallucinations, things like that. And um, but even then, going through probably the worst year or two of my life, dealing with those things and being stuck in a state of where I couldn't do anything for my life. I didn't have control.
Right.
Um, it's all about finding the things that you do have control over, even the smallest little things like making your bed in the morning. You have control on whether you can make your bed. Writing things down in a journal,
Hmm.
you can write things down and you can have control over your thoughts and your feelings. Um, and your passions. That's where you can really dive into uh, how you express those feelings, because it's never good to bottle those things up.
Right.
So whether that be music, I've written some stuff through music, and I'm actually planning to do it again.
Yeah.
And
That's exciting.
um, yeah, it's a very great outlet. But I've
Hmm.
also done some painting. That's helped a lot.
Nice.
The thing that I've gotten in tune with the most is film,
Hmm.
because you can put that pain and that suffering into something and not make it so obvious, but
Hmm.
still tell a story with it that people can see and reciprocate, but gather in their own way. And
But that's
so there's
so,
something.
yeah. What I was going to say is that's so profound, because it, I don't know why I never really thought of it this way, but and maybe it's I needed to be talking to a filmmaker to really put this in perspective. But in the process of like working through issues, one of the things I think that we crave the most is control, right? Having some level of control over our lives. And so when you're putting together like a piece of art, say a song or a film or something, that is, because it's your creation, you can actually mold it in the way that you want. And maybe that's why people who are creatively minded, why there tends to be a trend of some kind of trauma that they're moving through.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah. And it's interesting that, because you're a guitarist, you've got you've got a great singing voice. I've heard you sing. You're a lyricist in that you write your songs. I've seen your paintings, and you seem to occupy a lot of creative spaces. And to me, you seem like somebody who kind of would naturally fall into the filmmaker category because film is such an amalgamation of all of these kinds of arts, between like acting, dancing to some degree, literature, writing, of course, music, right? It seems to occupy all of these spaces. Am I hitting the mark with that at all?
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. It's like, um, film, people don't realize that there are so many aspects to film that they
Yeah.
don't even, don't realize, there's the camera, obviously that's the eye, and, there's the talent and that's what brings it together. But there's so many technical side of things. There's music that needs to be made, and that music needs to match the tone, and it needs to have a heart and a soul of its own to portray. And then there's basic set design where people can create an atmosphere just by the color of the paint. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And there's sound, how people can add sound. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of different aspects to create something. I don't know if you've seen those videos of like movies portrayed in different genres, but like the camera and the acting can be the same, but if you change the music, it's a completely different
Ab-
film. And so,
Absolutely. Yeah. I cobbled together a short film off of an educational video called "The Importance of Sleep," and I put the most nightmarish music I could and just like cut it up to be as disturbing as I could make it, and that was a great joy to show my film classes in college. So, so yeah, I know what you're talking about. So where for you, where would you say you're most happy or you're most satisfied maybe in the process, right? Is it the writing phase? Is it the filming phase? Is it the editing phase? Or anything in between?
um, I mean, there's definitely joy in every single stage. And of course, that final product is
Mhm.
the most satisfying because you get to see it all come together.
Right.
But for me, I personally like the stage of actually being on set and working with the actors and making it happen, because I mean that's where it's happening, that's
Right.
those are where the stories are told. That's where you get to talk to the actors and uh, share a vision together. And you know because the actors, most of the time, they come up with an idea of how to play a character that you wrote,
Hmm.
and it's just like, whoa, I didn't even think about that, and they just make it come so much more alive. And it's a good
Hmm.
feeling to see this character that you wrote on paper just emerge and be full of life. It's great.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it is. It's like breathing life into your words in a very real way, And it's funny that you mentioned that because you talked about when the interpretation works, right? But what about when the interpretation doesn't work? How do you deal with that?
um yeah, that's an interesting one. So it's very hard to work around that. But I mean, you know uh a lot of the time it's playing around with it and seeing what fits. Um, if it's a really sad scene and you're playing happy-go-lucky music, it's obviously not the image you're trying to get across to the audience. The same with imagery and lighting, things like that. So um, it's just as easy to make things work in a different way as it is to make things not work. in a different way.
And that's where your diplomacy skills have to come in, I imagine. Right? It's like
Yeah.
filmmakers have to be part-time politicians, I think, you know, in order to try and make everybody happy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's an it's an art form within itself.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I bet. Well, hey, so we will, I will link to the Limbo trailer, and certainly link to Spider King Studios. Is there anything that you'd like to get out that anybody listening to this interview, that you would like them to know?
Yeah. Um, I'd say if you're feeling like, with all these times of COVID, that you are stuck in that writer block phase where you just can't do what you want to do, I would say find a way.
Hmm.
Because whether you know it or not, you're as somebody who does an art form, you're kind of like an entrepreneur. You gotta think outside the box, and you know, you gotta figure things out because we don't know how long this is gonna take, and you gotta work around the system sometimes, and that's what I did with Limbo.
Right.
If I didn't write a script like Limbo, I would still be waiting, and I wouldn't have had the opportunities that have opened up to me now.
Right.
And so it's just, find what you are in love with, what you are passionate about, and go out and do it. It doesn't matter if you're making money or if people are telling you that you shouldn't. Just,
Mhm.
it's what you love and it's life. So go out and do it. That's what I got to say.
Perseverance, right? Perseverance. Keep at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That well said, wise words, and that is how we should end it. Jake Tranter, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Take care, man.